Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Robert is being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a great...
My goal is not to break you. My goal is to make you harder to break.
Comes back. Number 6.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
Touchdown! 90-yard touchdown!
Off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James. Sets his speed, takes a shot downfield, has Knighton. Caught! Touchdown! Chargers!
Boys, grab your lunch boxes and go attack this day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Yeah, buddy! Chargers kick off season 2024 with a win, a crucial divisional win, and FTR. A big week one.
I'm just eating those dubs, baby. Eating those dubs.
Shaped pancakes. Man, that was good football.
Oh, gosh.
A big week one for some new faces in the Powder Blues. Joe Alt deletes Crosby. Big Bear Bosa loses the club hand and hands a clubbing to the Raiders offense. And you can't leave out the big Poona, already tallying more interceptions as a Charger than JC Jackson. Woo-hoo! Welcome to the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. Gather round. Let's enjoy the spoils from a great start to season 2024 with the 22-10 victory over the Raiders. It's Andy Prophet here, joined by the Teach, Jack Reed, and mate. It wasn't perfect. At times it wasn't pretty, but this is Harbaugh football. How was the vibe in your neck of the woods watching that one?
Well, unfortunately, my daughter's got conjunctivitis, so I actually had to stay home and look after her on Monday. But there was lots of clapping as Dad was getting very excited nearer the end of the second half. So she's already a Chargers fan, folks. I'm sort of instilling that in her now. And what a first game for her to watch. She has no idea what's going on. She's won conjunctivitis. She can't see. But what a game for her to witness. You're right, Andy. It wasn't pretty. But God, it was just like, get down and dirty, baby. Down and dirty, baby. That's how we like to see, especially against those Raiders. FTR, baby. See you later. Ta-ta.
Yeah. Hopefully little Molly never has to deal with the sort of torment that we have, you know, even in our just over a decade-long fandom of the Chargers, because it's pretty torturous. But look, get her eyesight back and once she clears out the conjunctivitis, and she'll be enjoying Dad making all kinds of moves and screams. Of course, we are without our numbers guy, the Comrade Ali. He is enjoying a little bit of a getaway before his little girl arrives. So him and Kirsten head down to the coast. We'll try and do you proud, mate, but enjoy your week away and stop pestering us. That would be great.
Fantastic.
All right, mate, let's get into it. Kick off with some headlines because there's a lot to talk about tonight. But one incredibly interesting factor for me, and imagine reading this. Justin Herbert throws for 144 yards and Chargers win. It's interesting. It's important. It's refreshing.
Yeah.
How good. There's a run game. There's a plan to take the load off your shoulders. We've spoken ad nauseum in recent weeks of what a good run game could spell for this team. And we saw it start to develop in action as that game unfolded. I think it actually allowed Greg Roman to get not more complex, but I think varied in his concept calls, started utilizing some mesh and crosses. And that game just really fell into the Chargers' hands as it went on.
It was fantastic to see Justin Herbert not have to pull out late game heroics, actually, and it was other people on the field. You're 100% right, Andy, of taking the load off of his shoulders. We'll get into Greg Roman's game calling a little bit because there's perhaps some issues, but let's start positive and let's keep it positive. One of my first headlines, a little bit of a chess reference here for Ollie Lloyd. I don't know if he likes chess or not, but that's Alice's brother. My first headline is Rookies a Rook. And we know that the rooks are two pieces on a chessboard that are very, very powerful. We already had one rook on our offensive line in Rashawn Slater. But my Lord, I was watching Joe Alt with keen eyes on Monday for us, Sunday. The guy almost didn't miss a beat. There are a couple of beats in there. Christian Wilkins manhandled him a couple of times, which is to be fair. But the way he handled Max Crosby was lining out wide 9, line. He was coming in a little bit more. Crosby threw a bull rush at him. Crosby was going speed rush. Crosby was coming across his face. The footwork from Joe Alt and his ability to have light yet firm hands, resetting, regripping, passing Crosby through was just superb. It was beyond what I would have expected from him, actually. Absolute stellar performance. This guy's gonna hopefully be a 10-year pro, all pro. I'd like to hope. But man, that's my first headline. It was just insane to watch.
I'm glad you started with that because we just needed to get it in somehow. Because NFL, have you met Joe? Because Max Crosby has now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It almost seemed like we spoke about it last week when we were previewing this game about how in the contests that the Raiders and the Chargers have had before, Crosby goes, why would I bother lining up on the right-hand side of the defensive line and going against Rashawn Slater? When it's a 50-50, it's always an arm wrestle. He's been used to just picking on Pipkins, and now he comes up against the rookie. And look, there was some stunts. Pat Graham likes to do those sort of twist-in stunts where Crosby will end up, going in through the C gap or, in between the guard and the tackle, and can confuse a rookie lineman. But on those 1-on-1s, what was it, 8 or 9 pass blocking reps against him and not one single surrendered pressure. It was
unbelievable.
It was awesome. That's a pretty dominant duo on the line there with Wilkins and Crosby. Malcolm Kuntz was a big miss, and they obviously lost Tyree Wilson pretty early in the game. So it really just made that defensive line one-dimensional. But yeah, as I said, Pat Graham was sending the house, creating all kinds of trouble. And I guess while we're talking about the blocking and the offensive line, it's great that we've got just solid bookends. But how, as the trench man, how do you see the interior of that offensive line? I know you wanted to start positive, but look, we've got to. We'd be throwing darts every which way if we do that.
Yeah, that's right. Let's be honest, the interior of the offensive line was not good. I was hoping Bozeman would have a far better outing than that. PFF grading would also suggest that they're below. They're not even subpar. They are below the subpar floor. Johnson and Bozeman had pass protection grades of 22 each. That in week 1, that's Bozeman. That puts Bozeman in all of the centers. That puts him last, and Johnson, out of all the guards, puts him 66th, which is almost at the bottom. And then Pipkins comes in just below 50. So there was some major issues. But let me go to a positive, and this has been something that I've been banging my little drum on for a very long time. Justin Herbert even mentioned this in his press conference. The protection from the running back. Now, I did some digging into some data because we're missing our numbers guy, so I thought I'd don that helmet for a little bit. Let's just look at J.K. Dobbins and Gus in pass protection and what Herbert has actually almost never had in his career playing with the Bolts. Week 4, 2023 versus the Raiders. Okay, Eckler wasn't playing, I don't think. But this is the pass blocking from Spiller and Kelly, Andy. Listen to this. Spiller had two snaps. Had 2 snaps in pass protection and gave up 1 quarterback pressure. Josh Kelly had 7 snaps in pass protection and gave up 5 pressures to Justin Herbert. So out of the backfield, Spiller and Kelly had 9 snaps. Of those 9 snaps, 6 allowed pressures. PFF has a grade called pass blocking efficiency from their that they use across the offensive line. It's a number. It's not necessarily sometimes indicative, but this is where we were last year with Spiller, Kelly, and Eckler. PFF had Spiller as the 108th running back out of 117. Kelly was the 81st out of 117, and Eckler was 80th out of 117. Edwards last year ranked 68th. J.K. Dobbins didn't have a grade because he didn't play enough games. So automatically there is an upgrade. The Achilles heel of Justin Herbert, I think, has always been from opposition defensive coordinators sending the house, as you mentioned, Andy, is that they'll send linebackers on A and B gap blitzes because they know the running backs were not competent enough, which led to pressure up the middle, Herbert getting injured, and also Herbert getting spooked. So positive for me is that the running backs in pass protection were fantastic, and hopefully more to come.
Yeah, it was noticeable. It really was. There were a few just great blocks, especially as that second half unfolded. All round good game. I want to ask you what you feel about the lack of a true receiving back. There were moments there where, and I'll use this outlier. I hope it's an outlier. It was a first down, and Herbert flings it in the flat to number 44, the newly converted from defensive tackle. Can we please just never have to see that again? I just can't. I'm going, oh, that's Matlock. Oh, God. I just had a flash. I just had a flash to the Jack Jones interception on Eastern Stick last year of the little just cut inside, and he was gone. Thankfully, it didn't end that way. But even look, I mean, I don't quite know the stats of the backs receiving, but probably did a little bit. But yeah, a couple of receptions, couple of targets. It's I don't know. I feel like with the chemistry of the offense that the team's working through at the moment, not having a true number one, doesn't have Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. Josh Palmer is the most experienced, which says a lot about this receiving group. QJ's only had a couple of years and minimal exposure, I guess. And obviously Ladd McConkey's just played his first game. So where do you sort of see that as being a factor in how Justin just gets a little bit more comfortable with his job?
Scott Matlock is not Kyle Juszczyk. Let's just put it that way. How Shanahan uses Juszczyk in that system is incredible. Did you see that 30, 40-yard gain out of the backfield? It was incredible. Anyway, listen, I didn't love that, especially in a really big play as well. I'm seeing it as okay. Austin Eckler was Justin Herbert's safety blanket for a lot of his early career, almost the whole time the whole time Justin Herbert has been at the Chargers, he's had Austin Eckler, one of the best receiving backs we've seen in the NFL over the last couple of years. So to not have that now, perhaps is a way of the coaching staff saying, listen, this is a new year. It's a new system. I've got a headline here that Roman wasn't built in a day. People did criticize Roman for his perhaps, and I was critical of him, of the conservative play calling. But again, if we're using last season and Kellen Moore and then going back to Lombardi, I think we would have seen the ball aired out a lot earlier because they would have got a little bit skittish. Roman stuck to his guns, got a little bit more creative down the stretch in the second half, but said, no, Justin, this is what we're going to do. This is where we want you to put the ball. We are playing a game here. We're playing a full season. We don't need to start whipping out the whole entire playbook week one. All right, we're going to win this game, and we end up winning by 2 scores, which is pretty incredible. So I think I didn't mind it. And I don't mind Justin Herbert going through his progressions, not always just evacuating out to the flat with the running back. That's how I see it.
That's fair. And I don't want to be hypercritical, not of Scotty Matlock and what he did or didn't do in the run game, because it's all new. It really is. And that was noticeable because even when I watched the game the first time, I thought, watching the offense, I thought, oh golly, this could be a long day. This could be a long day if Minshew just finds time. Colton Miller has a good game and Minshew finds a little bit of time. And there were moments where that could have happened, There were some hookups to Jacoby Myers, to Devontae Adams. And we'll get into the defense in a little bit, but I think when I watched the game the second time around, I thought, this actually isn't as bad as I thought. What is killing us is the slow acclimation of the new players into the system, the scheme. How many pre-snap penalties did we have? Will Dissly, false starts, a holding penalty, Eric Tomlinson, false start, Ladd McConkey. That's 30 yards in those 5 penalties. that set us back, put us into third and medium, third and long, and really killed early drives. And then there were other sort of teething issues that sort of kept opportunities in the red zone to 3 points. Obviously, shout out to the superstar. Cam Dicker's just perfect. 52, 53 yards, whatever it is.
Boom.
Nope, don't have to worry about it. Absolutely smoked that one.
I do wonder, Andy, that perhaps the criticism, and both of our criticism, as I'm sure Alistair was also criticising it, because we're coming from a place of pain and suffering, is that when we see those pre-snap penalties in previous Chargers teams, both under Staley, under Lynn, and under McCoy, they would completely destabilise the team in that first quarter. All of a sudden, the defence is destabilised. They're feeling the pressure. They make mistakes. All of a sudden, Raiders go up 2 scores. We've only got 3 points on the board, and we're going, what the hell is going on? Why isn't Greg Roman firing out passes? Why aren't we gaining yardage? It's a very different style of a coaching philosophy that we've got to get used to, is that, hey, doesn't matter. This is what we're going to do. Don't freak out, guys. It's absolutely fine. Our system will prevail. And lo and hold, like that steady man at the ship, the steady captain, just going, hey, defense, go and do your thing. Minter, do your thing. Hey, Roman, do your thing. We'll get it. We will get it. We will get it. And we just pounded them. And that's a very, very new viewing experience for you and I.
Oh, absolutely. To use the adage that's beaten to death, the NFL season is a marathon, not a sprint. And there are 17 more weeks to get through, plus hopefully a few more after that. So, yeah, there's going to be... I hope I'm not treading on the teachable moment toes here by any means, but it's a learning curve for the fans as well, because what we would have seen is, a couple of stalled drives, just sort of field goals, would have been panic. Panic leads to mistakes, and it wasn't. It was refreshing to watch cool heads prevail. And then, I've heard countless pundits talk about winning the game physically in the trenches, but the mental victory that went on at SoFi Stadium was really enjoyable to behold. And we'll get into that a little bit later.
Andy, I've got a question for you, because you're kind of looking a little bit like Joe Ortiz. I love the fresh dome and things, looking good. The cook,
thanks for that.
you're actually a pretty good cook yourself. I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't mind some smoked meats when I come to Melbourne next. If you are Joe Ortiz and you've looked at the wide receiver performance from week 1 and the tight end room performance, are you looking to find some players to fill these holes in the next couple of weeks?
Look, I think if there's got to be a position that he would want to target for the trade deadline, if things don't kind of kick into gear a little bit, then wide receiver would be at the top of my list. In the next couple of weeks, I'm not sure. I think you've got to give it a bit of grace, like a bit of a grace period of moving down. I was going to mention this. Obviously, we didn't get the chance last week to talk about DJ Chark and his hip injury putting him on IR, but that speed factor is a big thing. It would be very handy to have the top taken off the defense. Maybe we'll see a little shift in the use of Darius Davis rather than just sort of end arounds and sweeps. But yeah, DJ Chark would be handy, and would be very handy come the games against Pittsburgh and Kansas City, where that need for just a little bit more of an explosive play might come into the fold. But watch this space on the trade deadline areas for the wide receiver room, if there's not like a comfort zone found sooner than later, I think. But yeah, look, I mean, it's kind of weird. We've always bashed the Joe Lombardi offense for, running the ball as much as we passed, but I think we had 27 rush attempts for 176 yards and 25, correct me if I'm wrong, 26 pass attempts for 144.
Very different mentality, though. Very different mentality.
Absolutely. No turnovers. There were moments where a drop Josh Palmer catch almost landed in a Trevor Merrick interception. Herbert obviously fumbled on that false start play. The encroachment play, or defensive offside. There were a couple of hard in mouth moments, but on the whole, I felt a lot more comfortable. I also just felt really good, even when the Raiders looked like they kind of went one step forward and our defense sort of forced them into 2 steps back every time they kind of pushed it in the second half. I felt safe watching the team hang on to that lead and then, obviously delivering the kill shot right at the end was awesome. So,
here's why I would definitely be looking for someone that's going to be there's going to be a couple of teams that have some really good wide receivers and tight ends that perhaps want to go to, if we're still in the race in, around week 6, week 7, want to go somewhere, and I'll be wheeling and dealing. It's just, I still think that we're missing that alpha dog. We had Mike Williams and Keenan Allen at alpha dog. Gerald Everett to a point was an alpha dog. The way he played, he was strong. He really bullocked his way through. At the moment, I think opposition defenses and defense coordinators go, actually, we've got these guys. We've got both of these rooms. They'll be fine. There's no one person that we need to cover. That's going to work, and perhaps that's what Roman is betting on, in that the next couple of weeks is that teams will start to fall asleep a little bit, going, oh, we don't need to cover Ladd McConkey, we don't need to cover Palmer, QJ's not doing too much. But all of a sudden, as the cobwebs just blow out a little bit more, and, Harbaugh's always the big proponent of the biggest leap in performance and sort of connection and coherency is from week 1 to week 2. All of a sudden, you start seeing, well, holy crap, Ladd McConkey's had 8 catches for 90 yards. And you go, how did that happen? Or, all of a sudden QJ has got, he's had four catches and he's gone for 80. What's going on here? That little bit as we mentioned, into the second half of, little more crossing routes, little more movement rather than sort of those curl routes and sort of out routes. Mind you, we have to point out that the out route that QJ ran was terrible. And if, a lesser quarterback, that's probably going for a pick 6 because Herbert threw it well out of the way of that. I think it was Jack Jones, actually. Just a little more clarity, a little more pinpoint accuracy with both route running and perhaps knowing the concepts a little more from Justin Herbert. Let's get those bloody pre-snap penalties out of the way. So, yeah, you're right. Watch this space for the tight end and wide receiver room.
While we're on the receivers, I actually kind of think the QJ deserves a little bit of a shout out. It wasn't a flashy performance. Stat sheet doesn't suggest anything, but even in that play that you're talking about on the sideline, he did well to high point that. He got around to it. He caught it before it was broken up. And I mean, there's not much you're doing about getting the hands in the ball like that. Reality is, he wasn't going to land in bounds, as you said. It was sort of thrown there to maybe stretch the defense or just keep them on their toes a little bit. But then, there was a couple of other efforts where he's caught it sort of in the short to medium. There was one where he caught it pirouetted on the spot, and a guy who's 6'2" just shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, that was explosive, wasn't it? Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Didn't he made the first guy miss and then maybe got another couple of yards after that. But then another shallow crosser later in the game, he was able to generate some yards after catch. So I think, well,
it's that explosive, that TCU explosiveness that we need to see a bit more of.
Are we finally seeing him used how he should be used? Is that, is there merit to that sort of question? Because I think that is his bread and butter. That, get the ball in, shimmy the hips a little bit, and he can make players miss. That's exactly what he did that led him to success at TCU.
And who was our number 1 rated PFF run blocker? Quentin Johnson.
There you go.
So, and it's not just 1 or 2 snaps, right? He's lined up. He's credited with 13 run block snaps. So the underrated run blocker of Keenan Allen leaves. So someone had to take that mantle. And you know what that does show me? That shows a guy in Quentin Johnson who is engaged, who wants to do the team thing, who wants to play. He wants 100%. To be physical, use that frame, which is all positive. Listen, and Alistair would always be, should we really be, looking for these kind of things in a first round draft pick? It's not very good, isn't it? He'd be the voice on our shoulders being like, no good, need better. But hey, we won. So let's be kind. Alistair, be kind to Quentin Johnson.
You're right. Hey, you've asked the devil's advocate question perfectly, because first round draft pick receiver, you kind of want your wide receiver 1. And look, he had a good game. He showed improvement. I'm being positive. I'm being nice. But there's a long way to go before he gets to where he should project to. Palmer, not a super flash start for the number 5. It was a little bit behind him, but that was a gettable TD pass.
Oh, yeah.
Dropped another. He did make a good catch on the sideline to sort of keep a drive going later. And Lad McConkey, yes. Shout out to McConkey for what was an awesome... Made 2 guys miss. They're just those quick feet. He knows where to go. That was great. Good to see him getting in there.
It's just reminiscent of those Edelman Brady connections, like those just annoying 7-yard passes that go for whoop whoop. All of a sudden, it's a 20-yard gain, and you go, oh, it's so frustrating. But Andy, before we do, because we probably got to move on
to us Chargers fans, man,
onto the defense. Do you have an apology to someone because there's a player on the team that played pretty well?
Yeah. Well, a huge shout out first and foremost to J.K. Dobbins for the return to football, and what a return it was. And don't get me wrong, it was hard to... I had those Eckler flashbacks from that long catch and run that he had where he just kind of packed it in. But, hey, the guy... I'm not having J.K. Dobbins play like he did and push that extra 15 yards and touch wood, something else happens to the Achilles. So, big apology to TDU superfan Athea. You were bang on, brother. 135 yards and a touchdown. You were right. I was wrong. My bad. I'm happy. It's a good result for us. But it's just smart steps from J.K. Dobbins. You watch him just hesitate behind the line. Yeah, and we've seen Chargers running backs hesitate and have no idea where to go. He hesitates and goes, that's the hole. Bang, gone. 40 yards, 60 yards. I think it was our longest rush since 2022 off the top of my head. That's 61, and it was great. Gus Edwards, look, wasn't as efficient. Still had at least one rush over 10 yards, but it's
not really his game. Yeah,
it's a great tandem back. So
it is,
tandem group. So I think that's the offense covered pretty well. Over to the defense because, wow. I want to just have a quick squiz over the numbers. Allowing only 73 yards on 22 carries, one of the big areas that we thought was a huge concern still. We did bring some new names into the interior of the defensive line, but the run defense on the whole was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Had 3 forced turnovers across the defense as well. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa were just phenomenal. Poona Ford with the interception, as I said at the top of the show. It was something really awesome to watch. And I think the big shout out is obviously to Joey Bosa, because that was a game. That was a game from a guy who, we've talked about, he took a pay cut. He just wants to win, and he's doing everything he can to ensure that his team gets the result. What do you have? 7 total tackles, 2 for loss, a sack, the forced fumble. That sack that he had on Minshew chasing down and getting the ankle tap, just perseverance. And then obviously of course the forced fumble on Zamir White. That was 10 yards down the field.
What a play.
Incredible. Just the nous to actually make that tackle and peanut punch the ball out. Relentless hunting. Saw him so many times outside the numbers, making tackles. He was the guy over on the sideline making the tackle, pushing Minshew out of bounds. It was great. He just looked like he was having fun as well.
And how's the cojones on Minter to be on early downs is not having Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa on the field as well.
Oh,
actually going, you know what, guys? It's this. I don't want to lean on my teachable moment a little bit, but it's exactly the coaches walking the walk is saying, hey guys, listen, you superstars like Justin Herbert, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. We don't want you to do everything, because when you do everything, you just won't last the season. You know what we will do? Trust our guys. Morgan Fox, his stop percentage in the run game was almost 43%. Poona Ford's average depth of tackle was -1. You've got Obonia, whose average depth of tackle was 1 yard, and you had Fox in there, whose average depth of tackle was about 2.7. So these guys were doing their job. And shout out to the linebackers in run defense as well, because that I haven't seen linebacker play like that from the Chargers. They were swarming the ball, and all of a sudden, the opposition White would hit the line, and it was just body upon body upon body. They were going nowhere. Boy, oh boy. And I mean, between Mack and Bosa, win percentages of 20%, and 18%, 8 pressures, 3 sacks, 4 hurries. You do that, and they're going to be fresh. And if they do that throughout the whole year, my Lord, that is going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah. It said last week that Minter's insertion as a pro defensive coordinator would be seamless. And it was I feel like even then I thought that's a big call, because we got excited about this defensive genius becoming our head coach a couple of years ago, and it was all too much. But the way that the defense operated as a complete unit the entire game, multiple hats to the ball on just about every tackle attempt. There's cohesion that's been sorely lacking in previous years.
Yes,
and a lot of the understanding, a lot of that is in the understanding that the players have of their responsibilities. And the perceived simplicity of their roles that allow them to do so and allow them to work off guys and come and support and do all that. It was awesome to watch. I love that smash mouth football. Guys are getting absolutely smoked. It was just great. It was really good.
And just in terms of bringing the pressure, again, just looking at some numbers, Minter's defense overall, 22 total pressures from 60 snaps, 4 sacks, 2 hits, 16 hurries. That equates to somewhere around 37%. Just looking historically back at a couple of numbers, so the total of the Chargers' pressures last year was hovering around 28%. And week 4 against the Raiders, because that was the last yardstick that we kind of had, that was when the defense and the offense was most healthy. That's why I'm using it as a bit of a yardstick, not the blowout, was dropped to around 24%. So if Minter is hovering around that 35 to 40% of all snaps are going to result in a pressure, my God, that's going to be a league-leading defense. Now, are we going to expect that every week? I'm not sure. But you know what? The Raiders' offensive line is no slouch. Colton Miller is close to a Pro Bowl tackle. Minshew is obviously not a Pro Bowl level quarterback. And I think perhaps we need to just wait and see a few more tests against probably some top 15 quarterbacks before we can judge Minter's defense appropriately. But it was a great start for a career for Minter.
Yeah. When we talk about the physical and mental victories of football, just loved how overpowered what Minter was able to manufacture. And you said it perfectly with the percentage of pressures from defensive snaps. I don't mind my own gear here, but the defense really got under that mudflat mullet and deep into Minshew's head. Yeah. That sort of almost tuck rule type fumble behind the line of scrimmage. God, that was fun to watch. That was just great. There was just and look, don't get me wrong, he still threw for 260 yards or something and had some good connections. Linebackers, you say they were good in run defense. Struggled a little bit when the Raiders are running a bunch of 13 personnel and you've got Bowers and Mayer. It's
and Adams.
Sort of and Adams, and it is a really good set of receivers that the Raiders have.
That's probably one issue I do have. And Henley, Colson, and Perryman, the NFL passer rating against Henley was 156.3, Colson 114.6, and Perryman 104.2. So not amazing, but you pointed out correctly that they ran a lot of 13 personnel and they've got receivers everywhere. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what they're like. I'd like to see Henley a little more against probably guys that he can match up better against. But yeah, it's the NFL, offensive coordinators look to exploit linebackers more and more and more, that soft underbelly of the field. So wait and see.
Yeah. I also want to just quietly shout out Derwin James for his efforts, because 7 tackles. And like we said, there's a lot of weight off the shoulders of Herbert on offense. I feel like there's a lot of weight off the shoulders of Derwin James on the defense, and he's able to just kind of play free Made some great stops, good tackles, still playing physical, playing smart physical though, which is very important. So, hats off to DJ Jr. Anything else you want to touch on defense before we move along?
I thought Jasir Taylor had a great game. Just talk about some of the DBs. He was really solid. He didn't stand out like he did last year. And I also think Christian Fulton had a sneaky good game too. Alistair in offline did suggest that on his second watch, he was watching him and he was covering his side of the field really, really well. So that's wonderful to see. Asante, yes and no, was okay. But the coverage, again, I don't want to jump to conclusions because you are talking about Minshew, who is a bottom half quarterback. But yes, it's so far so good. And Gilman, like these guys, you didn't really hear much, you didn't really see much. They were just doing their job. And
Gilman
that's
had
great.
an awesome read on a play in the flat and almost blew the hip.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I was like, God, I kind of wish he hit him properly. And that man's career. Look, wasn't perfect. We'll obviously say that the tackling in parts was good. There was a big missed tackle that led to that Alexander Madison 31-yard touchdown. Yeah. That was Asante. What I did notice actually as well is sometimes when the coverage was tight, we're just lacking like a kind of rangier DB. Yeah. A lot of those catches just unable to sort of get the hands around and make a play on the ball. You know what I mean?
That's a really good point, actually.
Just something I noticed both times watching the game, and I thought, look, I mean, there's not much you can do about that, is there, really? But it might just be something that they work on as a different approach to their coverage. I just want to touch on, before we get into next week, I want to touch on just some of the coaching stuff, because Big Jim Harbaugh is now 5-0 on opening day. Not only did the players, which is awesome, it's awesome, the game, the win means heaps for him as much as it does for the team, for him, his resurgence back into the NFL. Not only did the players win their fights, it seemed like the fans did from various photos and videos I saw. But importantly, I think Harbaugh outcoached Pierce. He forced Pierce into that soft decision to punt on 4th and 1 in Chargers territory late in the game. Perhaps it was the 4th down stop earlier in the game, but it was just little things like that. We made adjustments, especially on offense, as we've said. I think the DVOA in the first half, we were like 23rd, 25th across the league for the first 2 quarters, and that improved to 10th and then 3rd in that 4th quarter. So a really good sign to see we just put our foot on the neck and kill rather than protect a lead. We go out there. We could have easily just sort of killed time in that McConkey drive. It was 3rd and 6, but rather than just running the ball and settling for a field goal to go up, 19-10. Nope, touchdown. I like the idea of going for the 2-point there. Why not?
Yep.
It's good. Like I said, I feel a lot safer, a lot more comfortable. So good vibes.
If Pierce made some weird decisions, man. Like I didn't get a lot of the field goals. Like I didn't get not going for it 4th and 1. I think he's one of the most conservative coaches in the NFL, actually, if we look at the data. So, I mean, they definitely helped us win. But at the same time, as you said, maybe Harbaugh, that's the game he plays on the sideline. He's an experienced coach. This is what we're going to do. And, you're right, Andy. Rather than just run the ball on 3rd and 6, give it to McConkey touchdown, that's when you utilize your Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert's not having to make a 3rd and 11 or a 2nd and whatever to try and get yards. What he's doing, it's just a rudimentary 6-yard pass that ends in a touchdown that puts the game out of reach. No big throw. No, oh my God, he's hit it. And this big, it's just stock standard. We rock up, we do our jobs, we win, we go home.
Yep.
Fun. And you're right. It's comfortable. It's nice. Like a big warm hug. We'll see what happens, when we lose a game, but we'll go from there.
Really nice to hear how Harbaugh spoke. He referred to Joey Bosa as a Justin Smith type, which is awesome. And he was just wrapped. He was wrapped with the intensity and the intent of the players. That's where he wants to be. It was just all really good vibes coming out. So I feel good. I feel good about that one. And before we move over to week 2, take it away, Teach.
Okay, we have talked a lot about this, but let's just hammer this point home. Justin Herbert's performance against the Raiders exemplifies what happens when a team is backed by not just words, but by a system designed through experienced coaching. I remember saying a number of seasons ago that Joe Lombardi's system does not support what Justin Herbert does well. It's like this coaching staff seems to be that they're not just paying lip service to supporting him, and also the other veterans we talked about like Joey and Khalil, but they're actively walking the walk, creating a game plan and also an organization that doesn't require them or Justin Herbert him to perform heroics. Instead, they relied on collective will and execution of the team to absolutely just grind down the Raiders. This success isn't rooted in the wisdom and experience. Sorry, this success is rooted in wisdom and success and experience of the coaches who know how to build a system that supports their quarterback, ensuring that the burden doesn't always fall on one person. It's really important to have coaches and people to recognize the importance of their experience in shaping a system that truly supports their players. It's not just about saying we've got your back. It's about designing a strategy that proves it. And week 1, Chargers win by 2 scores over the Raiders. That is a step in the right direction. Class dismissed. Ding, ding, ding.
Beautiful. Well said, mate. All right, week 2, we come up against the, well, dare I say it, the hapless Panthers, who were pantsed 47-10 by the New Orleans Saints, who had a day out. Derek Carr was sensational, and the Panthers were not. My headline for week 2, a little Game of Thrones, you see nothing, Bryce Young. Minter is coming, and
that's great.
I'm starting. I stole Al's hashtag with the Minter is coming, but I've thought about this for a cerebral winning quarterback at the college level, being barely taller than me. The guy can't see off over his offensive line, and all you had to do is look at the first play. He can't dunk the ball over into the short, into the intermediate. He has to sort of sail it up. That first throw picked, just not good. He had another one later in the game. His throw to Adam Thielen that just absolutely missed him. There's some real problems with him developing. And look, there's teething issues. He's got Dave Canales there now as the head coach, who got in Baker Mayfield's ear and whispered some sweet good times at Tampa Bay last year. But look, talk teething issues at the Chargers. There are definite teething issues with the Panthers. They've splashed some money on that interior offensive line, but those tackles, I'm pretty sure Tyler Moton actually sacked Bryce Young at one point.
Their offensive line actually played relatively well, other than Ekwonu. I thought Hunt, Lewis, and Corbett were actually all really good, and PFF would suggest they're almost elite. So it's not a protection thing; it's a quarterback thing. And my headline, Andy, is Herbert pummels pathetic Panthers, Chargers clamp down and choke out Carolina. That's what I've got. Yeah, so yeah. I'm expecting a performance. I'd almost think that Herbert might come out and have a bit of a game here. And I think maybe we just need to put a ceiling on what a bit of a game means, because we could be looking at 220 yards. 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, and we win by 2 scores again. So poor Bryce Young. I actually almost was watching it going, I hope this guy doesn't get murdered out here, because it's very close. It's very close to being some NCIS New Orleans murder in the bayou.
There's a bit of concern as far as the defensive interior goes. Derek Brown injuring his knee and being out for the season. They did add a couple of handy pieces. None of them really seemed to perform that well. Davion Clowney was relatively quiet. Josie Jewell likewise. But yeah, Derek Brown being out puts a lot of pressure on Ashawn Robinson on the interior, and Jaden Peavy, who's the backup, to stop this two-headed running monster that the Chargers are developing. So I'm going to be interested to see how things shape up for the Chargers offense. I've got to
Oh, little cry. There you go.
Crying baby. Crying. He's like, don't say that. Things are going to be great for the Chargers. You're right, Ozzy. You got it, mate. You got it.
Should we do a bit of pass the parcel of how we're going to win this game?
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
I'll go.
Go for it.
I'm just going to say, run the ball early like we did. Run it, break their will at halftime, and go from there.
Yeah, I think with Brown being out, it's a big one for me, and it's keeping that team, Panthers defense on the field. There's JC Horn will be looking for revenge. He had 3 touchdowns on him, and he's good, man. He's a good physical corner coming back from injury. So, look, I'd love to see a big Herbert game, but I think it's going to be a ground and pound type operation for the Chargers, and I don't mind that at all. I would like us to be... I think we have to be kind of sensible and respectful. They do still have some names at edge, like Clowney is still Jadeveon Clowney.
Yep.
So it's going to have to be... I want Joe Wald to elevate, and that's hard playing one of the premier pass rushers, but I want him to elevate, and I want it to be a clean game for the tackles and a better game from the interior. Defense, look, let's just keep Mack and Bosa churning. Let's get Tooley. Let's have Tooley have a game.
Send pressure early and often. Bryce Young's passer rating under pressure last week was a measly 32.8. Took 4 sacks as well. Get him out of the pocket, make him run around, put pressure on him, and just watch those turnovers occur.
Yeah, don't be like, his average depth of target was 12.2, so he's gonna fling it. So we've still got to be wary. There's a fair argument to say that there's a need for the defensive backs to show a little bit more this week. I think just a bit more kind of awareness.
I don't know, when your completion percentage is 43%, you've completed 13 passes on 30 attempts and thrown 2 touchdowns. I don't really give a shit if your ADOT's 25. I'm sorry.
So you think Bryce Young's sitting there going, okay, so the aim of this game is just to see if I can throw it into the coloured bit at the end of the field. Yeah, right.
That's right.
That's a fair point. It's a good takeaway.
and they played from behind, so they were trying to get it. They were trying to get in front. But listen, is he going to have that bad of a game? Is our defense as good as New Orleans? These are all questions. I'm not sure. Yeah, you're right. Just walk in there, get points, walk out. That's what we need to do. Professional, away from home. That's what we need to do.
Yep, clinical professional victory, 2-0 to start the season. This is not one that we need afford to lose. But yep, hopefully we're back with Al next week and we can all revel. Al will be trying to jump on the train of the week 1 victory as well, so all the power to him. Let's give all the listeners reason to come back. Thanks for joining us, guys. We will see you next week on Thunder Down Under.
Ta-ta!